today is to make sure that you know where some of the pitfalls are so that they're then easily avoided and you don't run into any challenges along the way. So goals for today: quick introduction to academic integrity. I'll orientate you to relevant resources and policies at Flinders. We will discuss referencing expectations in the Master of Audiology, talk about expectations in relation to generative artificial intelligence, because that is where things tend to get a bit complex, and then the next steps. And what I mean by that is this session is your quick introduction, but there's a few things that you then need to do after this session to be compliant with academic integrity. So similar to the way you have placement requirements, the university also has academic integrity compliance requirements for all students as well. So this is kind of setting you up for that as well. Oops. So quick question. When I say academic integrity, what do you think of? Cheating. Not cheating. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Anything else?
Be sincere to your work.
What was that?
Be sincere to your work.
Be sincere in your work. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Doing your work with integrity. Making sure any work you submit as your own is your own. That's a big one. Yes. APA 7th referencing. So in general, it's, it's acknowledging the sources of information that you've used. And you are very correct. In audiology, we use APA 7th edition referencing style for that. So yes, that's definitely another one. Anything else that springs to mind? No ChatGPT. That's an interesting one. And yeah, I'd say most of the time, I'm saying sometimes it's absolutely none. Sometimes it might be a little bit. So we will talk about that a bit today too. How do you know what's actually expected of you? Because different tasks will actually allow different levels of generative artificial intelligence. And so that's why it's important for you to be in this session so you know some of the nuances and things to look out for so that you know exactly what you can and can't do in each task. But yeah, that's definitely an important thing to be thinking about. So I think academic integrity can be something that seems a bit nerve-wracking or a bit stressful, but the goal is of doing all of these introductions is to make it less nerve-wracking, to make you more confident in knowing that, yes, I am doing the right thing, and therefore, I can show that my work is my own. So we just need to jump. All right. Okay. So you've all seen the Flinders Learning Online dashboard by now. Excellent. So there is information on academic writing, academic integrity, math skills in academia, all sorts of things that you might need to support your studies as a student available on every course learning site at Flinders. The trick is knowing where to find them. So let's use Foundation Sciences because that's a bit more complete. So if you go to modules and then support, you'll see all of these tabs here. We're actually going to go to the student learning support area. And this links directly to the Student Learning Support Service. So this is a service at Flinders that provides a huge range of support options to help you along the way with your studies. So if there's something that you're finding difficult, going to the Student Learning Support Service is a really good starting point. So let's click on that and it's going to take us out to their page. So for a start, they've got a couple of these are actually AI tools, so a feedback buddy and a study buddy. The reason that Flinders allows the use of these is because they design them, so they know what the technology is actually doing. And B, they don't generate content for you. So the feedback buddy is going to provide feedback without telling you how to fix the issue. So it's going to support you in finding the problem so that you can then work through the fix on your own. And that's why, in this context, the use of these tools is acceptable. One thing we would say then is if you sought feedback on an assignment or something using Study Buddy, that you put a little note at the top of your assignment and say, you know, my first draft was, I was provided with feedback on my first draft by the Flinders Study Buddy through the Student Learning Support Service website. And we'll go, great, good acknowledgement of the tool that you used, and we'll mark your assignment. Does that make sense? So that's where the artificial intelligence, it's a grey area, and it's learning to navigate that. The bit that we are particularly interested in, though, is down here today. So do take some time to explore this more generally. But today we're actually going to go to the academic writing skills section. If we look across these, though, there's all sorts of things. So there's support for referencing. If you're not sure how to use APA 7th edition referencing, come in here. There is a guide. If you're struggling with some of the mathematical skills that we use in foundation sciences, try the academic numeracy section. Okay. But today, we're in academic writing skills because we're working with academic integrity. Again, there's a whole lot of really useful tools down here, but this is where we're focused today. So don't know what the volume's going to do on this, so we'll find out. But let's see what Flinders and the Student Learning Support Service have to say about academic integrity.
What is academic integrity? Academic integrity is, simply put, being honest and ethical in the work that you create, share, and apply. Acting with integrity is an important part of Flinders' graduate qualities and makes up one of the university's core values. As a student of Flinders University, you have a responsibility to act ethically and honestly in your studies. This includes how you write and create work, refer to the ideas of others, report on data or research findings, and collaborate with other students and academics. While most students strive to do the right thing, unfortunately, academic dishonesty does happen. The most common forms of academic dishonesty include plagiarism, which is passing off someone else's work or ideas as your own. Reusing your own work, which is when you submit all or part of previously submitted work for another assignment. Collusion, which is when two or more students collaborate in a way that is not authorised by the topic coordinator. Misrepresentation, which is presenting untrue information about your own situation or ideas you are using, such as falsifying a medical certificate or changing the date of a citation. Fabrication, which is fabricating or misrepresenting data or source materials, such as changing data in an experiment. Exam cheating, which is acting dishonestly to gain an advantage in a test or exam, such as copying answers. And contract cheating, which is commissioning others to write an assignment and submitting it as your own. Completing the academic integrity module will help you better understand each form of academic dishonesty and show you how to work with integrity.
There we go. So actually, there's lots of different ways that academic integrity can be breached that you're starting to see from that video, some more common than others. So we're just going to look at a few of them today, perhaps some more common ones, so you can start to see if something does happen, how Flinders is actually categorising, I guess, and figuring out, okay, what happened, why, what do we do about it? Again, if there's anything you're not sure about, it's all on this page, so do take some time to have a read of this. So we're actually going to start, let's start at the top, why not? Plagiarism. So, here we go.
Plagiarism. Plagiarism is when you represent the ideas or work of others as your own without giving proper acknowledgement. This might be including others' ideas in your work without a citation, or it might mean poorly paraphrasing another author. There are many types of materials that can be plagiarised, including books and journal articles, your own or other students' work, content from websites and other digital media such as podcasts or YouTube videos, films, documentaries and television programs, newspapers and magazines, university lectures, tutors and course manuals. Fortunately, there are lots of ways you can avoid plagiarism. All you need are the tools to properly acknowledge the work and ideas of others when you use them in your assignments. Firstly, make sure you know how to quote, paraphrase and reference properly. Paraphrasing in particular is a skill that takes a bit of time and practice to develop. Check out the Student Learning Support Service videos and study guides about quoting, paraphrasing and referencing. You can also drop in to see an advisor at the Learning Lounge on campus or chat to an advisor via Studiosity online any time of the day or night. Next, ensure you give yourself adequate time to study. Use a study planner or assignment tracker and seek support from the Student Learning Support Service or the counselling services if you're struggling to keep on top of things. Finally, make use of Turnitin, which is the text matching software students use at Flinders. Submit a draft and use it to help you identify poor referencing and paraphrasing in your work. If you do find poor paraphrasing, don't simply substitute synonyms. This doesn't count. Instead, have another go at writing the idea in your own words.
Yeah, so plagiarism, I think, is what most people would kind of think of immediately when we are talking about academic integrity. And the key things are, cite your sources. So if you got an idea from somewhere else, reference where you got the idea from. Another good way to avoid it is just don't copy and paste things because it can happen by accident if you're doing that. So avoid the copy and paste. Make sure you're putting things into your own words. If there is something that you think, oh, that was actually really beautifully said, you can reference it as a direct quote, but make sure that you follow the rules for referencing direct quotes because it's different to when you put something into your own words. So that's the general gist with plagiarism. Does anyone have any questions or comments around plagiarism? This one's one that most people are pretty across and able to avoid. I'm actually now going to jump to misrepresentation. This is one that sometimes there's sort of a link with plagiarism, and we sometimes have to think very carefully about how they're separated. And I think misrepresentation is also something that Wendy was warning you about with the documentation as well.
Misrepresentation. Misrepresentation occurs when someone presents false or misleading information about their work, identity, or circumstances. In essence, it's when someone lies about themselves or how a work was created. It can include misrepresenting evidence, such as manipulating a quote or changing citation dates, using citations to incorrect or invented sources, changing word counts or the formatting of a document to trick text matching software, providing dishonest information about a placement or participation in an assessment, altering or falsifying academic or medical documents or records. Many assessments, such as placements, require you to write and report on your own experiences. To avoid misrepresentation, be honest about what happened, even when something has gone wrong. This is an important part of the reflective process. In fact, we often learn the most when things go wrong. Also, don't change dates or information in a source. If you're unsure whether or not evidence is appropriate, ask your tutor or seek support from the Student Learning Support Service.
So the reason I started with those two is last year, based on last year's data, the most common reason that students breach academic integrity was misrepresentation. So as long as you're making sure all your documents are correct, you haven't falsified anything, the work you present is your own, you should be fine. But misrepresentation was the most common breach of academic integrity in the college last year. And then that was followed by plagiarism. So plagiarism came in second. So make sure you're aware of those sorts of things. Often when these sorts of breaches happen, they happen more because students are strapped for time, feeling really stressed about something, not sure what they're supposed to be doing. It's often not not that they've just decided, oh, I'm just going to try this and get away with it. It's usually driven by something else. So if in doubt, come and talk to us. Always come and talk to us. We are here to help. And our goal is to be able to help you so that you never end up in a situation where you feel desperate enough to then do something that's going to put you in jeopardy in terms of integrity. Okay. Any questions about either of those so far? Excellent. Another one that comes up is collusion. And again, this is a trick. It's just more of an error of judgment, I find. When students make errors around collusion, it's just because they haven't thought very carefully about whether it's appropriate or not to be working with someone else. So let's have the quick introduction to collusion.
Collusion. Collusion is when a student works closely with others in the creation of a work without the authorisation or knowledge of the topic coordinator. Collaboration and group work can be helpful and are often encouraged at university. However, helpful collaboration can cross a line into collusion if you share specific references or an assignment plan with other students, divide an individually assessed assignment into sections to be completed by different people, ask a student to share their assignment or an assignment from a previous year to give you some ideas, allowing another student to copy your work, writing or substantially editing another student's work. Avoiding collusion is all about knowing the difference between helpful collaboration, such as discussing general ideas or topic knowledge with another student, and when this crosses the line. You can avoid collusion by keeping discussions about assignment guidelines or concepts broad rather than specific, protecting your own work from others and not sharing previously completed assignments or assignment plans, seeking help from your tutor or the Student Learning Support Service if you need some clarification about assignment instructions. Remember, collusion only affects individually assessed work. Group work is assessed as a result of collaborative effort, and so the distribution of work that might be considered collusion in individually assessed work can be an important part of how you're graded. It's also okay and encouraged to revise for tests or exams as part of a study group. In this case, you're simply revising topic material and content together and will still be assessed individually, so long as you don't collude during the exam.
Making sense? So individual assignments are individual, group assignments are group. That's the short version of collusion. And yeah, just make sure that you're not sharing work with each other for individual tasks. There's the short version. Any questions about collusion? Concerns? No. Perfect. All right. Let's deal with artificial intelligence. It is here. Okay. No, it's not here. It's here. So I can link this page for you with the rest of the orientation material. But as I've already mentioned, using generative artificial intelligence is where we can kind of start to end up in a grey zone. And that's because there's a range of ways that it can be used. And depending on the learning outcomes of the task, there might be situations where we actually ask you to use it. But then at the same time, there'll be other situations where we say, don't use any form of generative artificial intelligence. So for you, it's about knowing, okay, in this assignment, this is exactly what I can and can't do. And then checking each assignment individually. So let's have a look at this one.
Unsure about AI? Just ask. Artificial intelligence is changing our world and providing new ways to engage with information we never thought possible. But what does this mean for how we approach and produce assignments at university? Let's find out.
How do I know if I can use AI in my assignments?
Many topics include instructions on how you can use or must not use AI in your assignments. This may appear on your flow site or within the assignment itself.
Some topics may use an image or an icon to let you know about the usage of AI, but some might not mention much at all. So if you're unsure, it's best to speak to your topic coordinator or lecturer and clarify what the requirements of each assignment are.
Here are some questions that you could ask them.
Is it appropriate to use AI in my next assignment?
What are the appropriate uses for AI in this assignment?
Is it okay if I use a grammar tool to help me with my writing?
Can I use AI translators to help me?
I've noticed that this program I use now has AI features. Is it still okay to use for this assignment?
The instructions say I can't use AI for writing, but can I use it to get some ideas?
What is it that you want me to demonstrate that I've learned by not using AI?
Make sure to ask these questions of your topic coordinators or lecturers when you're unsure. And remember that each assignment, whether in a topic or in different topics, will probably have different requirements around the use of AI.
How do I cite or acknowledge that I've used AI?
If you do use AI for your assignment and your lecturers or topic coordinators have said that this is okay, you'll still be expected to acknowledge how you've used it appropriately. Again, the ways in which you acknowledge or cite AI may be different between different assessments. Here are some questions that you can ask.
Do you want me to acknowledge how I've used AI?
For brainstorming?
To help me understand ideas?
To create parts of my assignment?
To check my grammar and spelling?
How do you want me to acknowledge or cite my use of AI?
Do you want me to keep drafts of my work or copies of interactions with AI, like the prompts I used?
Asking these questions can help you to better understand your lecturer's expectations, and it also lets them know that you understand and care about ethical use of AI.
I'm worried my lecturer might think I've used AI when I haven't. How do I show that the work is my own?
Being accused of using AI when you believe you haven't can be pretty scary.
However, there are a few ways to prove that you've authored your own work.
Try to keep drafts of your work at different stages so that you can show your work and how you developed it.
Keep notes about what you did to prepare for your assessment. How you searched for information and references, what readings you used, and what databases you used.
If you can use AI for some tasks but not others, please keep note of the tools that you used, the prompts that you entered, the output that you received. You can then explain how you used this to develop your own work.
It's really important to ask questions as early as possible so you fully understand your lecturer's expectations. The better you understand these expectations, the more confident you'll be in your use of AI. And remember, different topics and different lecturers may have different expectations about this.
We have assignments at uni for students to show the things they have learnt and the skills they have developed. This helps us to give you feedback and guidance on where you're currently at and what the next steps are for you in your learning journey. Using AI in ways that your lecturer isn't expecting makes it very difficult for them to give you good feedback and good guidance on how to keep developing your skills.
Remember, if you're unsure about AI, just ask.
Just ask your lecturer. It's easy.
The topic coordinator will know. They'll help you.
Don't go it alone. Get to know AI, get to know what your lecturer wants. Use it to your advantage in the right way.
Okay. So the volume on that one was a bit lower. Was it still okay? Okay, that's good. All right, yeah, so the key takeaway from this is AI use varies for every assignment, or what is accepted varies for every assignment. What we would tend to do in the audiology department is in the assessment description, we'll usually have a clause about the use of generative artificial intelligence that will tell you the level to which it is accepted or not accepted. And we'll also tell you what we expect in terms of citation. So a really common one that you'll find usually in the topics I teach, also in Karen's actually, is that we will often, in fact, let's have a little look at one. Assignments. So assessment details. So you'll always have some detail about the assignment, And then there should be a clause on academic integrity and generative artificial intelligence. So academic integrity, students are expected to adhere to all principles of academic integrity. Generative artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence should not be used to generate content for this task, so it should not be used to generate anything you submit. If used in other ways, so perhaps to get ideas or to figure out a concept that's tricky, you have to state very clearly which tool was used, how it was used at the beginning of your submission. So the beginning of that submission, you're going to have a little paragraph that says, generative AI was not used for anything that I have submitted. However, I did use it to help me find some sources on X, Y, and Z. I used this prompt to find those sources. I then looked at the output from Microsoft Copilot, let's say, and I went to each source via the library website. I worked with that source, I read it myself, I found the information in it, and then I have paraphrased that into my assignment. That's an acceptable use of AI. And the reason for that is that you've used the generative artificial intelligence as a tool to perhaps help you find some information you couldn't find or make sense of something you couldn't make sense of. So you've helped with kind of the idea generation component, but you've checked that the sources exist, that they are accurate. You've done the interpretation of them yourself. You've found the information, you've paraphrased, and you've written the work. So actually you've done what was expected of you in this assignment. Does that make sense? The work you're submitting is the result of your own thought process and your own understanding, and therefore acceptable. You have also clearly stated what you used and how you used it as well. So you have cited your sources, and that's really, really important too. So that's an example of how, with a statement like this, I'm not saying absolutely don't touch it, but be very careful how you use it and make sure you document and cite it. The other thing that we always say is if you use generative artificial intelligence in any way, you have to keep a record of how you've used it. So what were the prompts, what was the output, and then how, and be able to explain how does that translate to the final product. That's really important because our plagiarism detection software will flag it. It will flag your assignment as having the potential for being AI generated, and therefore you may get an email from us saying, so your assignment returned a fairly high match for generative artificial intelligence. Have you got some drafts and information you can show me just to explain why that might have happened? If you've got all of that information, it's very easy for you to go, yep, sure, here it is. And we can look through it, figure out, oh yeah, no, this is actually genuinely their work. They only used it for idea generation or whatever the case may be. And then we just go ahead and mark your assignment. So if you're using it, good record keeping is really important. The other thing that we very strongly recommend is we know that the AI matching text software, it's got some biases in it in terms of the way that it sort of categorizes different writing styles. So the other thing we recommend, even if you're not using generative artificial intelligence, is to make sure you save several versions of your assignment along the way so that you've got that record of the development of your work. Because even if you may not have used artificial intelligence, your work may still be flagged just because of patterns in the way that you write. And again, I can just say, look, there was a high match. Can you show me some drafts or show me the evolution of your ideas? If I can see that from your drafts, great. We're done. I'm happy. The easiest way to do that without putting too much of a burden on you is to work on your assignments in OneDrive, Microsoft OneDrive, which you have access to through Flinders. So if you use OneDrive to write your assignments, it will actually save several versions of that because it auto-saves. So you get the bonus of it's auto-saved, so a computer crash doesn't mean you lose everything. That's one advantage. The other advantage is you can go back to several different versions without you having to save as multiple times. So that's a recommendation that we have as well, because it doesn't create any extra work for you, but it just gives you that record keeping kind of built in to the system. So any questions, thoughts, concerns on that one? Yes.
No,
I'm not bored. It's Friday.
No, so I guess I'm curious on where there's like a line drawn between what is research and what is using AI to assist with finding ideas and articles, right? So at the start of every assignment, if I've gone into the UniSA library to find journals, do I have to note that at the top of my assignment? It's only if I'm using Copilot, ChatGPT, that kind of thing.
The other thing, which is really, really important to be aware of, is tools like Grammarly. So any kind of editing tool, you have to cite, because they use generative artificial intelligence to make recommendations. So if you're using any kind of editing tool, again, be very careful about how you use it and keep a record of that as well, because that's sometimes where students slip up. The other way that students slip up is translation. So any kind of translation tool will also be using generative artificial intelligence for its output. So be really careful with those as well. And again, just keep records of it. With those tools, particularly both of those tools, just make sure the records are there. Things like Grammarly, it's a bit harder because it's actually built into Microsoft Word now, which is a real irritation. But again, keep records of how and when you use it and cite it. With translation, never ever write your assignment in one language and upload it to a translation tool and then pull that out. Never do it, because that means your assignment was artificially generated. So what we recommend is to, again, use those tools, but use them to help yourself get better. We just need to move around a bit more. So again, with a task like this, I'm not saying just avoid them at all costs. I'm saying do your best to write your assignment. If it works better for you and the way your brain works to write it in one language and then translate it to English, do that, but do the translation yourself. And then if there's something that you're not sure about, put just a sentence into the translation tool for ideas. And then instead of copying and pasting, it's going to give you an example that you can then put into your own words. Does that make sense? So never just put the whole thing in or put in big chunks like whole paragraphs. Just use it to spot check and to help with the bits you're unsure of, because again, that's going to give you ideas and feedback to help you get better instead of just doing the work for you. Does that make sense? So spot checking, helping you improve your own work, good. Just make sure you cite it and have records of it. But putting, big chunks of your work in, avoid that. Because again, that's where things tend to go wrong for students. Making sense? Yep. Yes.
Can we use Google Scholar?
Yes, absolutely. You can search via Google Scholar. Yes. Yeah. So that's essentially you're doing a database search with that, and you're choosing your keywords and all of that. So that's fine. Yeah. Excellent. Any other questions?
So if we do use Google Scholar, we don't have to explain anything.
No. Google Scholar is fine. Google Scholar. So?
I'm just saying it's so much hard work using AI.
It is, yeah, it is. And I think that's the thing. Like it's a tool that for some people can be very useful. And the level of usefulness is going to depend on the individual as well. For me, I find it a hindrance more than a help, so I don't use it. But there are other academics in the department who find it a help, and they do use it. And that's okay, like both options are fine, but the trick is knowing when and how to use it. So if you are going to use it, it's a tool, but it should never do the work for you, because then you're not achieving the learning outcomes. The other thing too is, although they are improving. They're really stupid. They're really stupid. You cannot replace what your brain can do. You guys are the smart ones. And seeing some assignments that are written by AI, wow, there are some errors in there. So, it's because it's just an informational scavenger. It's putting things together on the basis of probability, which means that it is going to get things wrong. And as humans, it's up to us to see that and fix it. So it's a tool, but it can't replace what you can do. Okay, so make sure you trust yourselves. I think, again, often when students fall into problems with generative artificial intelligence, it's not because they're not capable. They are very capable. It's because they don't have the confidence in their own skills and capability. So if you're not sure, ask us. Come to us sooner rather than later. We're very happy to clarify, approaches that you might use for different assignments. And yeah, have faith in yourself and your own ability. That's a really important thing as well, because you can do this, and these tools can't replace what you can do. They're useful, they're helpful maybe for some aspects, but yeah, you can see things in much more depth. All right, let's do some interactive stuff. So, a few scenarios here. We're going to figure out, are these breaches of academic integrity or not? So, Jimmy was hungover and forgot to hand in an assignment. Oops. He forges a medical certificate and requests an extension on the basis of extenuating circumstances. Who thinks this is a breach of academic integrity? Yeah, good number. Who thinks, no, that's fine. That's not a breach. Good, glad no one's in that category. So yeah, it is a breach of academic integrity. This is misrepresentation. And again, one of the more common reasons that students actually end up with academic integrity issues. So make sure you represent your circumstances accurately. Okay, next one. The first year students are nervous about their upcoming acoustics exam. They all get together in the library to revise and quiz each other. Who thinks that this does breach academic integrity? Who thinks, nope, this is fine? I agree with you. So this is completely fine. You're revising together, you're helping each other to learn the content, but when it comes to the exam, you're all going to do that exam individually on your own, and therefore this is not a breach of academic integrity in any way. And in fact, it's a really good study strategy. I would absolutely recommend that when it comes to studying for exams, that you work together and help each other and support each other in that process, because it'll make all of you stronger. So this, completely fine, because each student is still going to do the assessment individually. Okay, Jane isn't sure where to start with her anatomy and physiology assignment. She asks her friend if she can read their assignment just for ideas. Who thinks that this does breach academic integrity? Yeah, a few. Who thinks, no, this is okay? This is good. Good, I agree with you. So this is collusion. It's an individual assignment. Students are therefore assessed individually and expected to do the work individually. So it's collusion if Jane does see the work of her colleague. Is that making sense? Good. All right, perfect. Now they're getting interesting. A group of 4 students have been given a group assignment. One student only shows up for 2 meetings and barely contributes to the final product. The other 3 students do most of the work between them. Upon submission, the group members are asked to individually assess the contribution of each group member. The 3 students who did all the work are not sure what to do. Do they cover for their colleague? In the end, they decide to tell the truth about how the work was distributed amongst group members. So, is it a breach of academic integrity? Who's voting yes? Who's voting there is no breach of academic integrity? Agreed. So this is not a breach of academic integrity. The students are acting honestly in terms of explaining how the group work was done. It's a group assignment, so we expect them to work together and we assess them together. So that's completely fine in this scenario. And I think the reason we have this one in here is because you do a lot of group assignments in audiology, and quite often we will ask you to rate, how much work did each person put in. And the reason for that is while the group is assessed as a group, sometimes we can moderate marks on the basis of contribution. Because again, it's misrepresentation to say, yeah, I was there, I absolutely contributed, when you didn't. So the trick to group assignments is get in, do it together. If everyone contributes and everyone pulls their weight, then there's no problems. If there is a problem, I would say actually before we get to this point, just come and talk to your topic coordinator. So if there is a problem with one or two group members not contributing, come and talk to us sooner rather than later, because we can help sort that out before it actually gets to this point. And I tend to find that with master's students, you're all adults, you all know what you're doing at this point. So we tend not to have too many issues with this anyway. But we are here to help when things happen. So if you are having any problems with a group assignment in any way, again, just come and see us as soon as possible so that we can help put things in place to solve that for you. Okay. All right. Andy isn't sure where to start with his anatomy and physiology assignment. He asks his friend who is studying medicine. His friend looks over the assignment and tells Andy what to write in each section. Andy then completes his assignment based on the advice of his friend. Oops, there's a typing error there. Who's voting that this is a breach of academic integrity? Yeah. Who's voting that this is not a breach of academic integrity? No one? Good, I agree with you. So again, this is collusion. We're assessing Andy, it's an individual task, but he's had help doing it from another student. So that's collusion. And yeah, would certainly constitute a breach of academic integrity. All right, what about this example? Sandy isn't sure where to start with her anatomy and physiology assignment. She asks her friend who is studying medicine if she can borrow some of their textbooks. Her friend says yes, so Sandy goes to look through their books, decides which ones to borrow, and reads through them until she finds what she needs. Does this breach academic integrity? No. Who's voting no breach? Yep. Who's voting this is a breach? Yep, I agree. So in this case, Sandy has done all the work herself. Yes, her friend has said, sure, you can borrow my books, but her friend hasn't found the information for her, told her which books, even told her which books to borrow. Even Sandy did that. Her friend hasn't given her the answers in any way. Sandy has found them. So this is completely fine. This is a good approach. Okay. Ava is trying to explain the results of an experiment reported in a published paper. She copies and pastes a graph from the paper into her assignment so the lecturer can read it themselves, just in case she interpreted it wrong. She does reference the paper, but only in the sentence where she tried to describe the results of the assignment. Is it a breach? Who's voting yes? Yeah, got a couple. Who's voting no? No? Okay. So yeah, you're right. This is a breach. And the reason is she copied and pasted in a graph. So she didn't try to interpret the work herself. She just copied and pasted it in. So any time that you use an image from another source, you also have to reference it. That's really, really important. And if you do use an image from an existing source, you have to reference it like it's a direct quote, because it is. You've reproduced exactly what the original author said. So that's really, really crucial. Usually, I would say, especially if it's in an assignment where you're trying to actually interpret results and explain them, this also shows a really poor understanding from the student. So in terms of the result that they would get from copying and pasting, probably what they're actually showing is that they don't understand what they're doing. Whereas if Ava had left the graph out of her submission and explained the results in her own words, she will probably end up doing much better on that assignment. Does that make sense? So usually try to avoid copying and pasting figures. There may be times where you do have to do that, and it's probably more for when you're doing presentations and things. If you do copy and paste an image for any reason, reference it, and reference it like it's a direct quote. So that means including the page numbers as well. Does that make sense? Good. Any questions about that? Good. Onwards. Here we go. Annie uses ChatGPT to write her assignment. She then paraphrases the output and submits it. Who thinks this might be a breach of academic integrity? Yep. Who's saying, could be all right? Yeah, I think the way it's worded, it's probably a breach. She said, write this for me, and then just put it into her own words and submitted it. But it depends on the assignment as well, and what the assignment has asked for. If the assignment asked her to do that, well, she's fine. But if the assignment was supposed to be her own work, then we do have a breach. So on this one, this brings us to the generative artificial intelligence. So I'm just going to jump back into that site. And where is it? Nope. That one. Okay. So at Flinders, you know, I was saying that we will tell you what you can and can't do. Like we should put something in the assessment description. This is why. So we have an assessment scale running from you can't use AI at all, like a invigilated exam, right through to full AI. Go nuts. We want you to completely embrace AI, use it to enhance your creativity, use it like a co-researcher or a co-creator in this assignment. So we can have full use of AI and everything in between, coming all the way back to no AI. So often where we tend to sit in audiology is around here in terms of maybe use it a bit, but you have to cite it and you have to explain how you used it, and the final output should be entirely you. Does that make sense? I think occasionally Medulla might do tasks with you where she'll get you to do something like, you know, ask AI to summarize this paper and then do it yourself and look across to see where the differences are. So, you know, sometimes there might be tasks like that. But again, if that's the case, we'll make it very, very clear in the assessment description. Does that make sense? Good. Any questions? Yes.
Just in saying that with anatomy, physiology, and sort of things, you can't rephrase it. Like, it's like anatomy.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. I mean, there's no essays in that topic. So I guess I could ask you to write an essay, but it's just not the best learning approach to something very practical like anatomy and physiology necessarily. So this will apply, it applies in different ways to different topics, I think. But yeah, I guess with the foundation sciences, don't ask AI to do to answer the questions for you, essentially. Is the trick, because actually it probably won't do a great job in my experience either. But yeah, the description is still there because it's important that you have some guidance. Yeah. Any other questions? Perfect. All right. Referencing. Oh, there we go. Some notes. Again, I'll provide these slides so you can access them as needed. Okay. General tips and tricks. I'll let you read through those when you have a look at the slides. But general gist, individual tasks should be completed individually. Group tasks should be done in groups and everyone contributes. If you're unsure, just ask us. We are here to help, and do it sooner rather than later. If you're using generative artificial intelligence, keep detailed records and keep drafts of your work as well. Know how to reference. Never copy paste. And avoid too many direct quotes. Try to put things into your own words where you can. So they're kind of the key things. Are you all comfortable with referencing? When and where to do it? Yes. Okay. All right. So this is an example of something that I pulled out of one of my publications. It requires references, but I took them out. So just raise your hands every time you think there should be an in-text reference. So it has been well documented that permanent hearing loss in childhood can have a detrimental effect on development. Both unilateral and bilateral hearing losses have the potential to negatively impact a child's language acquisition and consequently educational outcomes. Reference? Yep, I agree. This effect increases as the hearing loss increases. Yeah, reference. Agreed. Children with permanent hearing loss have also been reported to have higher rates of developmental delays, attention deficit disorders, autism spectrum disorders, socio-emotional difficulties, and behavioural problems. Agreed. Even transient hearing loss caused by recurrent otitis media has the potential to negatively impact a child's cognitive, linguistic, social, and emotional development if it is not managed efficiently. Yeah, agreed. So any statement that you've drawn out of any piece of literature, you then have to cite afterwards. And this is what it looks like with all the citations in. You got all of them. You got all of the spots where they needed to be. So as long as you're sort of aware of when you should and shouldn't be referencing, that's the key thing that we're trying to get from this. If in doubt, go and have a chat to the Student Learning Support Service. That's important.
Question about references.
Yes.
What would your recommendation be with regards to the period of the journal? So, like, how old should the journal be?
We usually don't provide too many guidelines. Medulla might provide more in the research methods topics, depending on the goal of each task that she's working on with you. But something like this, you have noticed that there are lots of really old references in here.
Yeah.
And that's because, for a start, it's part of a much larger piece. But it's a balance. If there are really seminal papers that are important but old, 1969 as an example here, you can still put them in, but then back it up with the more recent literature as well. So having a mix is often good. Don't rely entirely on old literature, but you can still have it in there to show that progression and that history. With a paragraph like this, part of the reason that a lot of the literature is old is because we don't really need to keep doing research on a lot of these things because we did figure it out in the 60s, 70s and 80s. So we're not going to repeat those studies again because we already know the outcome. What we'll do is add on with perhaps other things that are now better documented, better diagnosed, etc. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we'll never. I'll never say don't use it. There might be some tasks where there are guidelines, but always balance that old seminal literature with new literature as well that shows how it's still relevant. Yeah. Any other questions? Perfect. Yes.
In saying that you can still do references, but you have to quote it, like from which textbooks and page numbers.
Yes. Yeah. So you can also reference books and textbooks. There's a lot of good books in the Flinders Library. There's a lot available online through the Flinders Library too. But if you ever get stuck, sometimes just going into the library and pulling books off the shelf can be really quite useful as well. So different ways of searching. Okay, APA 7th edition, there is a guide. So if you go in through Flow to the Student Learning Support Service, there is a guide on APA 7th edition referencing if you're not sure how to do that. You can also talk to the Student Learning Support Service if you need it. There are policies and procedures around academic integrity at Flinders. I will add those links to Flow for you, probably on the general audiology site, which should have gone live yesterday. Next steps. So, as I said, this is the beginning of an academic integrity journey that you're going to take. There is now an academic integrity course that every single student at Flinders, from diploma right through to PhD, has to complete. As staff, we also complete versions of this as part of our mandatory training and compliance. So your next task is to go to the academic integrity course and complete it. You then have to submit proof of your completion to an assignment link that is in the Master of Audiology General Information Flow site, and keep a copy for your records, because this lasts for 3 years, so you only have to do it once. And it shows your compliance and your understanding. So I'll just show you where to find it. Dashboard. So come on, you can load. So on Flow, you should have this page now available. So if we click on that, your page will look a little different to mine. You should have access to assignments. And again, yours is going to look different to mine, but you're looking for this one, Academic Integrity for Students. Okay, go into that. And it's actually going to provide you with a direct link to the topic that you need to complete. So click on that. It'll take you to the topic. Work your way through that module. And then when you're ready to submit your proof, there's a URL that you copy and paste. It begins with this, and then it'll continue. You click, there'll be an option to like complete assignment or submit or something like that. Copy and paste your URL into that and press submit. That's all you have to do. What I will then do is go through and verify all of those links at some point and mark you as complete or incomplete. Does that make sense? So, excellent. So that is your next task. I think I've set up a due date, 12th of March. So that's Thursday of week 2, I think. So you've got some time. But I would recommend do it sooner rather than later, because things are going to get really busy really quickly for you. I'm sure Karen's talked to you about the fact that it is quite a busy course. So, any questions? Perfect. I better let you go and get lunch. So come back in here at 1 o'clock and we'll finish up on the inquiry-based learning. And then we've got one more task that we'll work through together. So we'll see you soon.